So many things in your house run on this AC waveform, but on the other hand, your phone, laptop, and lots of other electronics can't use this at all. So how do we turn this into a clean, stable DC or direct current? In this video, I'll show you exactly how that works using 4 diodes and why this configuration is a fundamental building block found in power supplies, phone chargers, audio equipment, and all sorts of industrial electronics. Basically, anywhere that AC needs converting to usable DC. Along the way, you'll see how rectification works, what the waveform looks like at each stage in that process, why ripple appears, and how smoothing and regulation turn that pulsating output into stable DC. First, just a quick note on safety. If you are experimenting with AC for the first time, you should stick to low voltages. Around 6 to 12 volts AC from a step-down transformer is more than enough for breadboard work. Let's answer the question, what is rectification? AC, or alternating current, is constantly changing direction. In Australia, mains power runs at 50 Hz, which means 50 full cycles per second. Since the current reverses direction twice in each cycle, it's actually changing direction 100 times per second. In the USA, mains frequency is 60 Hz, so the direction is changing 120 times per second. When we look at the oscilloscope, this appears as a sine wave, which is swinging above and below zero. But most electronic circuits require DC current, which flows in only one direction. Rectification is just the process of converting AC into DC using diodes, which are acting like one-way valves for the current. But now let's build one and see exactly how it works. Here's a full list of the components I'll be using throughout this video. You can click pause at this point, but I will also list them in the description below and label each component on the screen as I use them in a circuit. As you can see per the schematic I'm referencing here, first we need to arrange the 4 diodes into a diamond shape like this. Now, there are a few ways we could arrange these on a breadboard, but this is my personal favorite as it makes it easier to see what's happening. Visually, it also aligns more closely to how the bridge shape is drawn in a schematic like this. You can see that 2 cathodes are connected together, and this is our positive DC output. 2 anodes are connected together, and this gives us our negative DC output. And the remaining 2 corners connect to the AC input. AC goes in across one diagonal and DC comes out the other. Now, in commercial products, you'll usually see a single bridge rectifier module, something like these ones here. A compact package containing all 4 of these diodes, and it has 4 terminals, 2 for AC, 1 for our positive DC output, and 1 negative for our DC output. Internally, though, it's identical to our circuit, but pre-wired for convenience, higher current handling, and often better heat dissipation. In a finished power supply project, you'd probably use a ready-made module like these ones here. Getting back to basics just for a second, remember that each diode has a stripe marking the cathode, and their orientation in a circuit like this is critical. A common mistake is reversing a diode, and with even one of these placed backwards, you'll usually get 0 or very low output. And so before powering up your circuit, just double check these cathode stripes and make sure that they are orientated correctly. This is actually the moment that AC becomes DC. When I connect a 2.2 kilo ohm load resistor across the DC output, the bridge rectifier in its most basic form is complete. As the AC signal changes polarity, different pairs of diodes take turns at conducting. On the positive half cycle, diodes D1 and D2 conduct, while D3 and D4 are reverse biased. Current flows through D1, through the load, and returns via D2. And on the negative half cycle, we see the opposite occur. D3 and D4 conduct instead. But here's the key point. Current through the load never actually changes direction. The bridge simply reroutes it. And that is full wave rectification. Both halves of the AC waveform are used, and what we call the ripple frequency doubles. 2 practical notes, though, is to remember current always passes through 2 diodes, so there's a voltage drop of about 1.4 volts. Each diode needs to be rated for a peak inverse voltage of at least twice the peak AC input. As you can see per the datasheet here, the 1N4007 diodes we're using are more than capable of handling the AC input voltage we have here. Note on the oscilloscope, the AC input is a clean sine wave, positive above 0 and negative below. At the bridge output, the negative half of the waveform is flipped upwards, so both halves now sit above 0. And this is full wave rectification in action, but it's still what we call pulsating DC. The voltage rises and falls with each half cycle from our AC source, and that variation is called ripple, the difference between the maximum and minimum voltage. It's usually measured peak to peak or as a percentage of the average. For example, say 10% ripple on a 5-volt supply would mean zero point 0.5 volts of variation. And that fluctuation can introduce noise or unreliable behavior in sensitive circuits. So the next step is to smooth it out. If you're measuring some of this on your own oscilloscope, grounding can trip people up. If your current AC source is floating, use the negative DC output as your reference and don't connect directly to the AC side. A bridge rectifier is more efficient than a half-wave rectifier because it uses both halves of the AC cycle, and as mentioned before, this means that the ripple frequency doubles. There's also a small voltage loss, about 1.4 volts, due to the two conducting diodes. One detail that often catches people out is that the output voltage is based on the peak, not the RMS value shown on the AC side. For example, 9 volts AC has a peak of about 12.7 volts. After the diode drop, that becomes roughly 11.2 volts. With smoothing and a load, you'll typically measure somewhere between 9 and 11 volts. Now, the ripple exists because the voltage falls between peaks while the load continues to draw current. To reduce that ripple, we can add an electrolytic capacitor across the output. Now, with the electrolytic, we need to pay attention to polarity here. So the positive leg is on the positive DC side of our load, and the negative goes to ground. The capacitor acts like a reservoir. It charges to the peak voltage and then discharges slowly into the load, which helps to fill in the valleys between the peaks. On the scope, you'll see the waveform become much flatter as soon as I add the capacitor. And the larger the capacitor will provide an even better smoothing effect. Without getting too lost in the maths, this is an interesting formula to be aware of looking at the voltage ripple. And in this formula, F is representing the ripple frequency. As I said before, that value is different depending on your location, 100 hertz in Australia, 120 hertz in the USA. And basically the formula allows us to approximate the expected voltage ripple. The key point here is that ripple is roughly proportional to current and inversely proportional to frequency and capacitance. Don't need to calculate this on paper every time you're designing your circuit. You can actually see the effect almost immediately on your oscilloscope. If you change the capacitor value and look at that peak to peak voltage, you can see the ripple drop noticeably. Try a few different values, watch how the waveform changes, and determine the best capacitor value for your particular scenario. As always, there's only so many things you can cover in a video. I'm not going to talk too much about different types of filtering, but I will say that in some circuits you can see an RC filter, which is what we have here, a resistor and a capacitor. The resistor limits how quickly current can change, while the capacitor stores and releases energy to smooth out the voltage. An LC filter, on the other hand, uses an inductor and a capacitor, where the inductor resists changes in current, while the capacitor smooths the voltage. One thing I do want to talk about a little bit more in this video, though, is a common addition to this circuit, which is adding a voltage regulator. Because even after smoothing, the voltage can still vary with changes in load or input, and sometimes you might need to step down that voltage considerably to, say, 5 volts. A device like the LM7805 provides a clean, stable 5-volt output voltage, which is a common DC voltage needed for things like microcontrollers and other sensitive electronics. The regulator typically needs about 2 or 3 volts more than the desired output, so you'll need to plan your input voltage accordingly. Pin 1 receives the unregulated DC. Pin 2, the middle pin, is connected to ground, and pin 3 is our regulated DC output. Once regulated, the ripple is effectively eliminated and the output stays steady. Per the datasheet for the voltage regulator, a 0.33 microfarad ceramic capacitor has been placed between the input and ground, as close to the regulator as possible. This helps filter incoming noise and prevents oscillation. And a zero point 0.1 microfarad capacitor has been placed between the output and ground, again, also close to the regulator. It stabilizes the output and improves something called transient response. Now, these are the minimum recommended values per the datasheet for this voltage regulator. In real circuits, though, it's also very common to add a larger electrolytic capacitor on the output for better smoothing. Sometimes another bulk capacitor on the input if the supply is noisy or far away. Also remember that the regulator needs to dissipate all of that extra power as heat, and they can get very hot, so a heat sink is also often necessary. If you want a step-by-step guide on wiring this part of the circuit, as well as more information on how to select the right capacitor values, you can check out my recent video on voltage regulators. I'll link that in the description. As you draw more current, the capacitor discharges faster. That increases ripple and causes the output voltage to drop. And that's why adding a voltage regulator is so important in real circuits, because it helps to keep things stable under changing loads. And one last thing, a smoothing capacitor can hold charge even after the power is removed. Always discharge them safely before handling the circuit, not just to protect yourself, but to protect your components. We've created a bridge rectifier with 4 diodes, and this produced our pulsating DC. We added a smoothing capacitor to smooth the DC and ensure reduced ripple. And then we added a voltage regulator, which stabilized and provided a regulated 5-volt DC output. And you've now seen how AC is converted into usable DC, why ripple appears, and how smoothing and voltage regulation can clean it up. And once you understand this circuit, you actually understand the foundation of almost every power supply on the planet. Try it for yourself though, play with the capacitor values, change the load, and watch how the waveform responds. That's when this stuff will really start to click. If you found this helpful, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps the channel to grow. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.